We're going to go hard for 45 minutes. And you'll hear me. I definitely start to like wrap it up. You'll notice. But just, oh, why is there audio on that? Mute. Okay. Um, you run it, all right? You lead it. I'm just going to kind of guide you through the flow. But as I said before, this is I want to hear about you, you know, like I think you're awesome. That's why you're here. You know what I mean? Like that's the thing. But that's what it is. Like I think you're an amazing person. That's why we're doing this. So I'm going to hit record on this so we get that double triple record. Now the cool samurai loading screen. I I wish I had designed that. No, but I also do games and I do stream games as well. So there's like a mixture of gaming and filmmaking on this stream. I don't perceive you to be much of a gamer, but correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah. It's so much stress. Okay. I love that. All right. I'm going to take us live, but that's so real. I love it. All right. Hello and welcome everybody to Nobody Loves You with today's guest Isabelle Pierre, my lovely lovely friend. You're
Hi.
incredible. Thank you so much for being here. As always everybody, I love Isabelle and now I want to tell you why. I mean, she's a writer, she's an actress, she's a producer, she's a comedian. She does it all. And she's here to tell you all about the amazing projects she has going on and things she's cooking up in the future. But the first thing I want to hear is how did we meet and what are you doing right now?
So we met on a summer New York City day.
Oh, it's true. It was summer New York City.
You were producing or helping to produce a short film, and I had met, and I work as a crowdfunding coach too, and I met. Are we allowed? Can I say their
You can
name? I
say
don't know.
anyone's
Great.
name that you want.
Great. I just want to make sure.
You can
I met
curse too, by
Ash.
the way.
I
Yeah,
love cursing. It's one of
yeah,
my favorite pastimes.
yeah.
Um, so I met Ash doing a short film for a friend, and I was talking to her about like crowdfunding and everything. And she's like, "Well, I'm launching this project." So she sort of brought me in, and I met you at the meeting. Um,
Yes.
um, and I think your hair was out or was longer at the time, and I think you had just had
Definitely less
your first
professional.
kid. I mean, long hair doesn't not have to be professional, you know?
But it did not look
But
professional. Let's be real. I was a
uh
little shaggy.
I mean, I wasn't when you're working with like independent creatives, I'm not like clocking, you know. I'm clocking you guys showed up, everyone was at the table. I was like, "Oh, this is like real. Like this movie's happening." Um and that's what I like to see, especially when I'm coaching folks. I like to see folks show up. And oftentimes, especially when you're working as an independent creator, you can't always pay people their full rate. Sometimes
Yeah.
you can't pay them at all. So it's a testament to I know, right? Ta, ta, ta. So it's a testament to getting people to show up for you. So I was excited to be there. And that's how we met.
Yeah, and I was there for Ash.
Hmm.
Ash is just such a great person, and she's actually been
Hmm.
on this show as well. It's
Oh,
amazing that
nice.
you two are both on the show in the
Hmm.
first season, and that project Liminal turned out incredible. It's just such a fantastic film. And the thing about that meeting was the energy in the room was awful before you showed up. Oh my god. And like that was what I noticed about when you
Hmm.
walked in because I was like, who is this woman who just took control and
Oh.
just put everybody in their place? Because I don't know if you remember, there was another gentleman there who wasn't exactly giving us the best input, and you were just kind of like, okay,
I recall.
let me just exactly right. Let me just you very graciously
Hmm.
put him where he needed to be, not in check, but yeah, you put him in check and took control of that meeting. And I was like,
Mm.
that's a woman I could listen to. I could
Ah.
respect Isabel. And I learned so much from you from that first meeting
Mm.
alone.
Oh wow.
And we went on to work on a couple projects together after that because
Hmm.
you went on to work with Michael Cook's
Yeah.
project as well,
Hmm.
and then you helped me on mine. I mean, you are a
Yeah.
guru. Let's just be
Oh,
real. If
thank
people
you.
don't know, Isabella is the crowdfunding guru, but she is so much more than that.
uh,
And how did you start off crowdfunding? Because this wasn't like you just did it. You had a project, right?
yeah. So true story. I went to grad school with it was a big class, about 12 of us, and one of my friends is from Turkey, and it was 2000. 20 it was 2015, 2016. um and she was on an artist visa, and she was concerned that she wasn't going to be able to get her visa renewed, and the application for renewing an artist visa is intense. She was consulting with her lawyers, and there was they had recently gotten a client approved, and when they told her how, it's basically because he ended up at the White House somehow, and he got a photo with President Obama at the time. And I was like, oh, okay,
Oh,
well,
so
yeah,
we
yeah,
just have to
sure.
get you to the White
Yeah, we
House.
just gotta we just gotta get you past. Um, so anyway, so I was like, you know what, if worst comes to worst, I'll marry you. And we did not end up doing it, because thank God, because that same year, or I think the next year, 45 was elected.
hmm
And his anti-immigration policy was pretty strong.
He had a
Um,
different opinion.
a very less pleasant opinion.
Yeah.
Um, and the truth is, we would have checked off every single suspicious box, like different races, different ethnic backgrounds, um, same-sex couple. Like, it would have just
hmm
been, we could have potentially gotten into some serious trouble. And then at the time, she'd started dating someone, and I'd started dating someone seriously, and neither of our partners were super open to an arrangement as such. So the universe stepped in and was like, this is not a good idea, we have a better idea. And I wanted to write, I wanted to give her footage, I wanted to create footage for myself that was different from what I had been doing. I get booked in a lot of like very dramatic roles. I say I play a lot of like sad moms and authority figures.
Okay.
Very sad, always very sad. A lot of like cops and security guards,
Okay.
that kind of jam. And I wanted to be in something that was like funny and like grounded, and like I don't lead with like my fun side, I don't think. So it makes sense the way I'm sort of typecast.
Mm.
Um, but I do. I have this lightness of being about me, and I wanted to show that off. And more importantly, I wanted to show off my writing skills. I had taken writing classes before I went to grad school for acting, and I wanted a proof of concept. And it changes the conversation, especially when you're an actor. I think people really treat you like you're needy, no matter what the request is, and
Mm.
it's really unfair. And I hate it when that happens to actors, but people really, really treat you as if any request or any attempt to move forward in your career is like, oh, you just want attention, oh, you just need something. And it's that's maybe for some people, yeah, but for the most part, people have spent a lot of money and time investing in themselves, and we are startup businesses as actors. You spend a lot of time and money investing in your craft. So yeah, when you get out of school or you get out of a training program, there is this sense of like, I'm here, I did all the
Mm-hmm.
things. So like come at me, bro. Like, come at me with the gigs now. It doesn't don't work that way. So I wanted to change the conversation, and I wanted samples, and I wanted to learn how to pitch and how to approach producers, and the most accelerated process I could think of without having to go back to school completely was to create my own work and include my friend in it so that she could update her visa and get her visa renewed,
Mm.
right?
Interesting. Yep.
Because now you have to, it's like, I think it's called something like extraordinary artist. Um, I don't know, I'm going to say application for, because I can't think of the term,
Yeah.
but what's required is like, like recommendations, and then you need theaters and then like theater directors to say they're going to hire you for the season. And it's like, so now you have a producer, and now she's a producer coming in and saying she is needed here to do her art.
Interesting.
Yeah, yeah. And then I worked with a private writing coach for a while who's a godsend. It's a woman called Ella Tier, and she runs the Independent Film School. She runs that franchise. And she sort of started it from the ground up, and that's pretty awesome. And I was private coaching with her for a while, and I was kind of blocked as a writer, and she was like, just pick someone you'd want to write for. And I was like, immediately, it was my friend Nasla, who's my co-creator. And I got to tell you, like little by little, like everything started to piece together. And actually, it's funny. Today's the anniversary of our photo shoot that we did for the crowdfunding project,
Are you
which is,
joking?
yeah, yeah. Nasla sent me a text this morning, and she was like, "Oh, do you remember?" And I was like, "Holy crap!" And yeah,
You
today's the
forgot
day.
your anniversary. Good job.
It's not unlike me, honestly. I don't. Yeah, it's birthdays and anniversaries. I'm like, just give me the date range and I'll get it within a few days.
So this project is what sort of like
Mhm.
inspired you to learn crowdfunding.
Yes, yes. And it's called Vows.
Mm.
And just to sort of give the log line, it's the two immigrant actresses from conservative backgrounds have to give the performance of a lifetime when, on the day of their marriage interview, a family member comes to town to visit. It has since been expanded into a full pilot. We took it to the festival circuit. We got
Mm-hmm.
to pitch it. Um, and I got to meet some like really awesome people. And as things were sort of like coming together piece by piece, like we found an amazing director, and we found an amazing co-producer, and people were just like really excited to be a part of the project. We
Mm.
found this a DP who's like assisting on projects on Netflix, and I didn't have access to those people, and I certainly wouldn't have had access to those people if I had just presented myself as an actor. Um, and I gotta tell you, part of crowdfunding is showing up in the world and saying, it's okay for me to ask for money to do this really cool thing. It's okay for me to share my art and to need contribution in order to make that happen. And there's so much, I think, of being an artist that's people are fearful of sort of declaring that, of putting that stake in the ground. There's so much shame around it. There's so much shame around asking for money. There's this belief that it's not real, it's not necessary. But like as we saw last year, like how many TV like saved people, like
Mm-hmm.
people were vegging out on comedies and watching things they might not normally consider. And um yeah, so and it brings up a lot of money blocks too. So I was fortunate enough, or we were all fortunate enough, the director who I worked for had actually run a Kickstarter before. And she was like, okay, so you want to start with the script, you have the script, you want to start, and her name is Jenny Leese, you guys can look her up.
Mm-hmm.
It's an amazing human.
You're gonna do it right now.
um and she ran a Kickstarter and then like I think raised over $20,000.
Wow.
And of course, like she had a team and everything, and she's like, okay, first thing you need is a script so that you can get a crew, and then you need the budget. And me and Nazla is my co-creator. When we sat down and like saw how much money we were gonna need, the both of us were like, we can't ask people for that. Yeah. like, we can't do that. We can't do that at all. I was like, what's no way. And Ginny being more comfortable sort of with money and with asking for money and understanding the value exchange. And it was great to have that energy on the team. It's just like, yeah, this is how much you need. And the truth is,
Mm-hmm.
minimum for an independent project is about ten or $11,000.
Easily.
Just
Mm-hmm.
minimum. And that's still with favors. That's still with favors. It's still
100%.
with like our location was free. We got SAG insurance because we were working with SAG actors. Um, minimum. Um, but we still, transportation, and like you don't even, and the thing that Jenny tried to explain to us is like you don't even know in what places you're going to need money sometimes. Like you don't know that, like, the van, you're going to need the van an extra couple of hours, and that's going to cost you a couple hundred extra bucks. You don't know that the gas money is going to cost more, that um that the food, maybe, you're going to need different kinds of food options. You can't just do stuff for pizza anymore, you guys. Like, people have dietary restrictions, and so it was, yeah.
Isn't producing exciting?
It is but it is, though. It's so exciting, and things come up and you have to figure it out, and we were figuring it out. And the thing that I coach people through is a lot of mindset stuff. It's a
Mm,
lot of, it's okay. It's a lot of, you have to make the ask. It's a lot of, make the ask and let other people decide how much they want to give, whether or not to give. Don't make those decisions for them. um Another thing to coach people on is, like, you don't know where it's going to come from. You think like your best friend for 20 years is going to give you cash, and then they don't.
mm-hmm.
Maybe something's going on, maybe, personally, maybe, whatever. But then, like, this person that you had a conversation with at a bar once, and you kind of kept in touch with, ends up giving you $200. Like, you just don't know who's going to give. So it's also a matter of, like, being vulnerable enough to, like, cultivate your contacts, be open with people, and just be open and curious about the process. um, and I researched a lot. I read through all the materials on all the major platforms. I spent weeks reading blog posts, reading threads on Reddit about crowdfunding, and, like, piecing together everything I could about how to make this as successful as possible. um, working on a team, incredibly important, like, so important. Do not, guys, anyone, if you're out there, do not attempt to crowdfund on your own. Don't do it. There's no need.
Preach.
Don't ever do it. um and sometimes I'm in all these Facebook groups about, like, movies and films,
Mm-hmm.
and people in the industry and everything like that. And occasionally I'll see someone drop a link to their crowdfunding campaign, and I have to stop myself from being like, you cannot help everybody. Uh, but, like, that doesn't work. That's not how engagement works. It's not how cultivating a campaign works. Like, it takes strategy,
Mm-hmm.
and it takes a team, and it takes time. Sometimes one of the things I do is I won't work with clients if they don't have a script.
Mm-hmm.
So at the minimum, or like a really strong treatment, or a really strong storyboard, or something like that, because it's like, how do you know what story you're telling?
Yeah.
How do you know what you're asking people to contribute to? And I'll see that sometimes on projects, and I'll pledge to a few projects if I think the idea is, I'll throw them like $15 or something. But I'm like, how? And then those projects kind of disappear for like years at a time, because
Mm-hmm.
you don't know what your story is. Like, how could you possibly? um
I feel as a producer myself,
mhm,
I don't think I have ever worked with an idea. Like, because one of my first questions is the script registered? Not even is there a
mm.
script written. Is your
Yeah.
script registered and copyrighted by somebody? Because I won't look
Hmm.
at it otherwise. So to think
Mm.
of like working with someone's just treatment, it's like, oh wow, we have a lot of work to do.
Mhm.
So that's terrifying to me. But the one thing I think you hit on that I really want to circle back to that I think is so
Sure.
fascinating is the idea that as an actor, you needed to create your own opportunity. And just like how realistic that is becoming for everybody in the
Hmm.
modern time because YouTube offered this new platform. TikTok offered a new platform, Zoom comedy, which we'll get to. I know you're a big part of. Like,
Hmm.
everybody is punching down the door right now saying, here I am. Look at
Hmm.
me.
Hmm.
And it's just, I wonder if you can speak to that as an actress who has sort of needed to pave your own way.
Hmm.
like how important is it to people who want to get into the industry right now to say I'm going to make it myself?
So there are these like trends that appear within every industry. And I think sometimes it makes people feel like they have to do something. And I would say if it's not your jam, don't do it. I
Mm.
think the amount of time, energy, effort it takes, I think in it, and I think if it's not your jam, but you're finding trouble cracking through, then like create content that's going to help you crack through. So you really have to have a very clear goal on why you're doing it. I wanted to display different parts of my acting ability. I wanted to help my friend create a package that was good enough to get her visa renewed. I wanted writing experience. I wanted producing experience. I wanted to pitch. So it made sense for me to do this. So I want to start there. If it doesn't make sense for you, if it doesn't feel good for you, the process is going to feel awful, and it is so much work and time and dedication. Um, but then like you see these people breaking through because they're making stuff, but I think we forget that they're making stuff that they like.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never been the kind of actor to like shit on an influencer or like a social media content creator. One, because it's a lot of effort to make that much content. Two, it's a little scary sometimes because then like it's hard to it's hard to elevate past that content. Like once people know you for making the same joke all the time, they kind of want to see you make the same joke all the time. And then you can see some influencers and content creators like struggling to move into a different niche or to be appreciated in a different way because they'll lose followers and then they're financially dependent on that stuff. And you don't want to get these treats. You don't want to get the followers and the attention and everything before you're ready.
Mm.
Because then
Mm.
there's nothing to like,
Wow, Isabelle.
there's, yeah, you like, there's nothing to capitalize on. Like when I think of the auditions that I got before I was ready, like, and I
Mm.
bombed hard because I didn't understand how the business works, and that doesn't feel good either. Um, so yeah, so don't do it unless you really want to, or do it with a very, very specific goal and strategy in mind. And I think the best thing an actor can do, especially if they don't have footage, if they can't get cast in someone, is to, you know, like figure out what some of their branding is. And there are lots of like really intelligent people who like offer services on that. If you want to do, that's a good reason to get started in casting director workshops,
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily to get cast. Because if you are not in the union, if you don't have a reel, if you don't like, they can, there's only so much they can do with you, right?
Yeah.
Um, you know, if you didn't go to like one of the top 5 grad schools or something, and I didn't come from one of the top 5 or 10 schools or whatever, so no one's gonna like open that sort of door for you. You gotta bang it down to yourself. So do those things and take those courses simply for information. Look at the kinds of scenes you get assigned. Check for the kinds of descriptors people use for you.
Mm.
Be curious. Like you have to spend a lot of time being curious instead of what most of us do, which is like put an incredible amount of pressure on ourselves to book something, to get something, to have something materialize often so we can express or demonstrate to other people that we're serious
Right.
or that we're bankable or that we're doing it. But you're always doing it. I mean, this is like conversations I wish I could go back and have with myself.
Which is why we're
um,
having them now. So if everybody listening who wants to do what you're doing can hear it here first and save themselves so much pain,
mhm,
needless torture. Now,
mhm.
I do want to shift gears because I want to get
Let's
to
do
your
it.
I want to get to your comedy. You're a funny woman, which is one of
It's
the
true.
things. Like
It's
when
true.
I met you, I thought that like we had so many phone calls to discuss my
Mhm.
projects and projects you're working on, and I thought you were hilarious. And when you were like, "Hey, I'm doing a comedy show," I was like, "Yeah, that tracks. That totally makes sense." Your show, remind me, it's called Participation Award, correct?
Yeah, so
Tell
I
me
I
about it.
taped my I taped my own special because I was like,
Amazing.
why wait till I'm famous? And I was like, no one's gonna care about like the lighting. Like if anything, TikTok and Instagram has shown us is like you can have some stuff that's highly produced, and then you can also just like put some stuff out.
Just
Um,
shoot it.
just shoot
Just
it.
shoot it.
Just shoot it and just like have some fun. You can take it down
Yeah.
later. It's not the end of the world. Unless some illegal stuff is going on,
Right,
and then it
right,
kind of
right.
is the end
Yeah,
of the
yeah, yeah.
world. There's this my journal is somewhere, but I keep it near me. Done is better than perfect. So like you just gotta do it. So I was like, why wait for this dream of being famous and then having a special? I was like, just tape something. So I had been doing comedy um for I started it last year around this time. um I was like, things are bleak enough, I can get started on comedy. um and it coincidentally or interestingly, whatever word suits the sentence, I guess. um the teacher who I'd first taken a television writing course with, I'd sort of kept up with him in passing throughout the years, sort of in and out. And I saw him post on Facebook. He's like, I'm really bummed out that I can't do stand up. His name is Jim Mendrinos.
Hmm,
Trying to give all my teachers
nice.
their due. And he's been in the business for years, written for tons of people. I think he wrote on the Tonight Show at some point. um, One of the Tonight shows. There are many. He's an amazing human being. So gracious, so generous. And he was like, it'll be pay what you can. I know comics are out of work if you want to take a comedy class, and it's also because like he just loves engaging with people. And for a year now, every Sunday from about 12 to 2, they've been in this class. And it's just like me and like and it mostly guys, but like a few other guys, and they're also like really open, really gracious. And um so he posted, and then I sort of put it in the back of my head. And then he posted again, and then I wrote him an email, and I was like, I want to do this. And then he approached again. So it was like this prodding that felt sort of otherworldly of like, Isabelle, do this, do this, do
Mm-hmm,
this, do this.
mm-hmm.
So finally I replied back in a timely fashion. and, um, and we got started on class, and I was just like, let's just learn it. And I think being an actor who has taken so much craft and been trained in a very particular way, it was also sort of glorious to experience another art form just by like jumping
Mm-hmm.
in there, you know? Um, and of course, now that I've been doing it for a year, I never think of comedy the same. And I look back, I've always really loved stand-up comedy. I remember being little and like being up late at night and um, watching, I think Sinbad or something
Oh
like
yeah.
that. And like watching all the BET comics at night, and really really enjoying it, and but never really thinking about it for a long time. Actually, I was like, I could never do that. I would never do that. It's very scary. And all that shit is true. It's really fucking scary. But um but yeah, I just sort of moved forth with it, and I started doing stand up, and then I did my first Zoom show in May of last year. And then I've just been doing steadily. Some shows are better than others. I have bombed, and some shows have been super weird, which is doing it steadily week by week.
I
And
wanna
I
I wanna ask you
Go
about
ahead.
that because this is an
Yeah.
important part of this show. I
Yeah.
myself, I did do stand-up comedy for quite some time. I actually came to
Oh,
New
nice.
York for stand-up comedy.
I didn't know
I
that.
did, yeah. I started out doing a lot
Awesome.
of stand-up comedy, but it's this part that I think so many people have trouble with. When you bomb,
Hmm.
how do you get back up on stage after that failure? After the audience hates you, how do
Mm.
you get the courage to be like, you know what, next week I'm gonna do that again?
I'm just gonna go up again. So what's beneficial for me, so I'm my very first stage performance is going to
Mm.
be in a couple weeks. I've just been doing it over Zoom. Yeah.
Where? I'm there. 100% I'm
Oh,
there with a camera.
you gonna come to Atlanta?
Yeah, yeah, I will fly to Atlanta.
Listen, I'll hold you to it. I'll hold you to it. You bring the baby too,
Yeah,
so I can kiss the
both
baby.
babies, and they're gonna cry in the audience.
That'd be great. And then I'll talk shit about you
Yeah,
during the set. It's
this
like,
is your
who's
bit now.
who's the asshole who brought the babies
You
to
told
the
me to bring them.
nightclub? um yeah, so I think what's helped is that I started as an actor and I bombed a lot as an actor. Like
Okay.
I've had some amazing auditions, but I've had some terrible auditions. So I there was something like a built-in failure mechanism. I was like, if I could go through the experiences I'd gone through and keep going, I was gonna be okay. Um, I was gonna be okay. And I think and bombing over Zoom doesn't feel any better. It doesn't feel any better to be able to see people just like zone out or like go look at something else.
I
And like I
Yeah.
think sometimes people on Zoom just like forget that we can see them when their camera's on. Or
Okay.
maybe some of us are so used to it that the body language is different because there's something about being at a club. You won't like kick your feet up at a club and like yawn.
Right. Right.
But you're in your house when you're over Zoom, so you will. um
You have just
so
made me like second guess every single Zoom comedy show I've gone to because I know I've looked down and started answering emails before in the
Mhm.
middle of a Zoom show.
Yeah, which is, it's completely different than like when you're at a club and you might not like the comic and you might maybe talk or like,
Uh-huh.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
uh-huh, uh-huh, uh-huh. Or like had a whole conversation with like your wife while someone's doing comedy and they can see you doing this even though you're on mute and like, yeah. Yeah. Oh no. Oh no.
I've been
You
that guy.
guys-
I feel like such a dick.
but I mean, and listen, it's part of the game, and I think how you get back up if you really want to, and you just have to find your muscle and you have to find your way, and it's still scary and painful. And I think also there's this assumption that if someone's been doing it for a while, there's no anticipation or no fear there, and that's just not true.
So I always talk with comics about this, especially comics who have never been up before, as you say,
Mhm.
is you
Mhm.
have to bomb. Because you
Mhm.
you have to one time you need to know what that feels like so that when you're on stage and one of your bits isn't going well, you feel the bombing vibration and go, oh, drop the joke, next joke, I know this one works. Like you
Mhm.
have, and it's the same thing with being in a relationship. You need to get your heart broken once so you know what that sort of feels like and you can pull the plug before it just explodes. Because there's
Mhm.
nothing
Mhm.
worse than watching a comedian trying to like dig out of the hole and just keep throwing it on top of themselves.
Yeah, and it's just not possible for you not to. It's such a subjective art form. And I think
Mm-hmm.
when you're used to a creative life or you're used to artists, it's very rare that like other artists will be like, that's just bad. What you
Right.
understand is that you're just not into it. It's not your jam, it's not your thing. But like lay people are like, I don't like it, so it must be bad. And
Right.
there's like nothing you can do about it. Or I don't like that style of comedy, so it's bad.
So they're bad. So now I hate them. It's like,
So now I
okay.
don't like them. It's
Yeah.
like, mm,
Jeez.
okay. Yeah. Or like just the assumption that no one's ever had a bad night or a bad showing or something like that. It's the same with athletes, right?
Yep.
And then you're just on there by yourself. But I will say that comedy has been such a gift because it forces you to refine your opinions on things and stand by them
Mm-hmm.
and stand with them no matter what people think about them. Um, and it reveals itself. It reveals you to you. And I think mhm,
That's such a cool thing to say
mhm,
about comedy is because what you find funny in the material you want to like joke about does reveal you to you. Like that's such a
mhm,
beautiful way to phrase it.
mhm,
So
mhm.
what did you reveal to yourself? What did you find out, Isabel?
Oh man. I'm I have some conservative views, I think sometimes.
Really?
that really, yeah, that pop up out of nowhere. And but they're like intellectual views
Okay.
that just like, and I'm like, how did how did that get in there? Like how did I don't think I put that in there. Um I have I have a lot of discomfort with so part of the setup of the joke is I have a friend of mine who's trans, and I remember this was years ago, and I was having a conversation with them about an actor who had played a trans character on
Hmm.
screen. And this is before I was more educated about it. And I was like, that actor's just transforming. Like, aren't they just right? All that bullshit. And
Right.
I was like, aren't they just like um aren't they just like having more empathy? And of course my trans friend was like very nice about it.
Mm.
And I was stumbling with my words, and I was like, but and then I went, oh, this is what white people feel like when we talk to black people about race. And and my trans friend is white and has like passing white privilege in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So like, and they laughed as well, and it was just like this interesting thing. But it showed like, and even in my jokes now, like I genuinely I typically stay away from sort of the binary and that kind of stuff,
Sure.
because I don't feel like I can stand firmly in that truth. I also don't think necessarily they're my jokes to tell, but I've even been hesitant about like sharing that joke on stage.
I don't know. You actually
Yeah.
legitimately brought me to tears. And like I I have done this show for a while now, and you were the first people to bring me to tears. Cuz that bit, as a white male, you're hitting a part of me where
Uh-huh.
now I'm relating to you, a woman of color.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
Mm.
such a hard thing to do
Mm-hmm.
for us to
Mm-hmm.
have an empathy bridge.
Mm-hmm.
And you are putting it on to another cultural identity. So both of us now can have optics on a third identity. So
Mm-hmm.
personally, obviously, test this on other audiences. I think the joke is
Mm-hmm.
gorgeous. I think it's so good because you're putting yourself as the, not the victim, but you are the dunce.
Yeah.
Yes, you are lowering yourself to the audience. Be like, oh, I'm doing the thing.
And apparently that's not my typical style.
Okay.
Apparently I've been told as by Jim is like, you're always kind of like above here making fun of people. And that's like,
Mm.
I was like, am I? And then I would like go back and look at the sets and be like, whoa,
Yeah.
that superiority complex, which is like totally inherited. It's real.
Yeah.
Like
It is real.
and that's the kind of stuff that starts to like reveal itself to you a little bit. I have this bit that I do on interracial dating
Mm.
that's in my special, and it's about um making fun of um some of the black men I've met on dating sites who date interracially, often, because they will often tell me like they'll admit it to me, but it feels like a warning, right? Because it feels
Yeah,
like,
I'm getting like red flags.
yeah, it feels like I've selected you, black woman, and like if you mess this up, right? And but I've had to like I've had to like really like interrogate that joke and be like, okay, like what does this really mean for you? Like where is this coming from? Like
Mm.
just to make sure, because I'm not of the mind that, people interpret what they interpret, but you're still putting things out there into the world, and I'm not of the mind that you should just allow interpretation. It's gonna happen. There's nothing I can do about it. But I do want to make sure that I'm putting stuff out there that isn't punching down to vulnerable communities.
Punching down's a real thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the biggest danger we have as artists, let alone as
Mm-hmm.
comedians, is punching down because it's
Mm-hmm.
so easy. And some people do laugh at that. But what are you doing then? Like you're creating a
Mm-hmm.
dialogue where it's acceptable to punch down at that target.
Mm-hmm.
I went through UCB when I was in New York. I
Mm-hmm.
studied improv and comedy, and one of the biggest things they taught at UCB was how true comedy, like the best comedy, gets the audience's consent. And
Mm,
so when you punch down, you're getting the audience to consent to that treatment of that group of people. And that there's an
mm,
inherent danger in doing that. And
mm-hmm,
that's why I think I love your jokes so much where you're like, "Oh, I'm doing the thing now." Because you're
mm-hmm.
putting yourself down and allowing the audience to laugh with you
With me,
instead
yeah.
of at something.
Mm-hmm,
So yeah, I think what you're getting at is a very important part of comedy is you have
mm-hmm.
a choice.
You do.
You have a choice. Every joke
Mhm.
you make, you have the choice of where you're gonna go with it.
For sure. And I think it's beautiful too that you just have to stand in that truth. You just like and it's just you up on that stage, you know. And I see all the things that like I was on a show last night, and it was a competition based show for
Mm.
this club out in LA. And I made it to the next round.
Ooh, go
And,
you, go you. Okay.
um and it was a largely, it's a mixed audience, mostly African American,
Okay.
and a few there's I think one or two white comics that made it on to the next round, but the material they selected was all about their whiteness. And I remember having a conversation with a friend, and it was like, I wish they would have just done them, you know, like they were still
Mm,
funny, but they consciously knew that they were going to be in front of a majority black audience, so they decided to do like funny white boy shit, you know? And again, it was well structured, so I could tell that they were talented.
mm-hmm.
But I was like, I wish they would have just like this one comic sort of made fun of. I think he called like his tractor trailer upbringing or something like that. And I was like, I want to know more about that, because in this audience you have black folks from all different walks of life. I want to
Right.
know more about your working class background. Like I'm from a working class background. I would love to know more about that, because to also be from that background and to be pursuing art, it's challenging. You don't, no one else in your family has done that before. So it's also been interesting. Like, I know that I'm not having a great set sometimes, or I don't have anything to say when I talk about sex, because it's such an easy, and when I don't talk about it in a very creative way, it's really like low hanging fruit. And as I go back now and I'm putting more of that scientific craft lens into my sets, into other people's sets, into the sets of the people who I grew up really admiring, I'm like, they'll mix it with like really like sort of highbrow, for lack of a better
Sure.
term, highbrow stuff, and then they'll put in some like fart jokes and like some sex stuff, which
Right.
like it really gets people rolling. And it's like you got to have like a little bit of all that stuff. You got to have everything, um, to keep the audience engaged, and to like keep the set like moving and grooving, you know.
Absolutely.
um and so, but sometimes again, like I thought those white comics were playing down a little bit by only talking about their their whiteness in the context. And I was like, oh, I want to know more about you.
But
That might
they
not be
were
their
going
style
for the
either.
win. That's what they were doing. They were going for the
Yeah.
win. They were
Mhm.
branding their set
Yeah.
towards the optics of the audience that they knew they would get the best reaction. You
But you know,
know
it's
that's
fun.
not their set. You know that's not what
No,
they do.
but like a week before, right?
Yeah.
There were only two people who went on to the next level. Like I've been watching all the shows for research
Yeah.
because I want
Yeah, you want to win. I get
to
it.
win. And there were two. There was a South Asian woman who won, and East Asian woman who won. Neither of them pandered in that particular way. Neither of them.
Well, they're better comics.
I,
That's
I,
all it
I guess
is.
so.
They're
I
stronger
guess so.
comics.
And one of them just talked about like she sort of she made fun of like the customer service background and that connection to her Indian heritage.
Oh,
Yeah,
interesting.
which I thought was like a really brilliant connection,
Yeah.
because it like in the hands of a lesser comic, it would have gone to like straight stereotypes and
Yeah.
like nonsense. But the way she did it, she was just like really contributing contributing it to her experience. And then the other comic talks a lot about like motherhood and stuff like that. And I'm like, there's many,
Mm-hmm.
so many places you could have gone. But I also, and that's another thing you do as a comic, you balance the personal with the room, with the lowbrow, with the highbrow. And that's all the stuff I'm learning how to do.
And it's you have your whole life to figure it out.
Hmm.
Because that's where your voice comes from. That's where your style comes from.
Hmm.
And once you have it, you just never let go. You just sink your teeth in and
Hmm.
just ride
Hmm.
that until
Yeah,
it kicks you.
for sure. Yep.
What's next for you? We got to know. You're doing so much.
What's
What's
next?
on the horizon?
What's next? I am so I in an effort to reach more folks for crowdfunding, I'm working on a workbook right now. It's
Oh,
nearly
cool.
complete. And I know we work together privately,
Yes.
and what this book will do is take people um, through how they can personalize their own crowdfunding campaigns and their own experiences. I see your hand go up.
Am
What's
I
going
in
on?
the book? I have to know. Am I a chapter in the book?
You could be. Listen, you're gonna get it. You're gonna get an email later this week about a testimonial. Okay,
All
that's all
right.
I'm
All
saying.
right.
That's all I'm saying. Um, but it's definitely. I want more people to be able to access this so that it doesn't feel like a mountain to overcome. And what's funny is like even in the writing of this book, even though I've helped folks, even though I've done my own campaign, it's been a lot of like practice what you preach. It's been a lot of like, how do I value this? How do I um like and in all honesty, people can get anything in books on the internet for free,
Mm-hmm.
right? But why do we pay for catered information? So it's been a lot of like focusing my storytelling elements on that. And I just want to teach, especially first time crowdfunders, that it's possible, that you have to
Mm.
plan. It's going to take work, but it's possible. And it's possible if you don't have a lot of followers. It's possible if you don't already have like a email list. It's possible if you come from a working class background and you don't come from a family who's able to contribute in a particular way. Um, that it can be done if you have a story, if you have a script, if you have a clear idea of like what the project is going to, the final manifestation, if your goals are clear. So the workbook is all about working people through those goals without the benefit of having me. That's okay. But now you have the book.
You have the
And
book
it,
and your emails
mhm.
in the back.
Yeah,
They
my
can
email
get a hold of
back
you.
just in case. Yeah. Um, and eventually it's because I'm a a very spiritual part of me. I do like EFT. I do some tapping stuff,
Oh,
meditation.
nice.
So it'll also include, for people who want it, some like companion stuff. I know when I'm not in the mood for mindset stuff, I'm like, the hell needs this? I don't want this. So it'll be in there for folks who want it and need it, because it's crowdfunding is going to push up against any and every single insecurity you've ever had.
it's
All of it.
it's mind blowing the day before you launch. The thought of, is
Oof.
this worth it? Right? Am I
Oof.
worth it?
Hmm.
Am I a writer? What am I doing? Like every ounce of you just rejects the thought of what you're about to embark upon.
Tell me how you slept while you were crowdfunding too. How you
Did you
slept those 30
sleep?
days.
I don't know. Like all
Did you sleep?
I just remember being awake and messaging people and then like exhaustion napping pretty much
Mm-hmm.
in the chair. Cuz that's
Mm-hmm.
what it takes. It
Mm-hmm.
30 days of talking to every single human being you've ever met. There was
Yeah.
people I met on flights who I reached out to. It was like, "Hey, remember J 2J? You remember 2J? I'm 2H. Remember me? Uh, we sat together. How you been?"
Mhm.
But that's
Yeah,
really you need, that
that's
type of
really what it
drive.
takes. That's really what it
I can't wait.
takes.
I'll buy your book, 100%.
Oh,
I'll buy your
thank you.
book. I'll probably buy two copies, one to hand out, because that's what you
I'm
do.
I'm so grateful for that. And I'll be using I'm going to be selling on an independent platform.
Okay, cool.
I've decided to forego Amazon for now. Just there's a lot of noise on Amazon
Yeah.
and all that stuff. And I'm still learning and I'm still building a business. So if I decide that that's not a good move, then I do something else. That's part of my vibe. And I feel like that's part of the creative life. That's part of the artist life. It's testing. If
I
it's not good, you move on.
I have a silly question. Are you
Don't be silly.
crowdfunding for the crowdfunding book? Are you like just to like be a proof that it works?
No, sir. No, sir. I think the next time I crowdfund. So I wrote a feature at the beginning of this year.
Oh, tell me about the feature. What are we
So
doing?
the so I wrote a feature at the beginning of this year. I wrote my first draft. It took a bunch of days off of my day job, my survival gig, and I just like hunkered down. And the way that I work with stories is I'll get an image. It'll be a line of text. It'll be a character doing something physical. Sometimes I'll just see the character and it sits with me and it lives with me for a while. And I sort of I'm getting better at like having the image and then putting the action into the writing
Right.
part. But for a while that was very hard for me. It would be like a very spacious amount of time. And for this, it's been 2 years since I had the image. And finally this year, I was like, what am I waiting for? So it's about um an African American woman who works at a startup. She works in the HR department of the startup, and she is sexually assaulted by one of the new hires that she brought in, who also happens to be African American. And the world around them is white and white passing. And it's sort of what happens in this bubble. And it's sort of like the battle between, and it's copywritten, don't worry about it. And it's sort of like the battle between community versus self. Um,
Wow.
and that's sort of as much as I'll get into it for
And
now.
you do comedy, is what you said, because this is
Listen, I
heavy,
think it's super
heavy.
heavy. It's super heavy. It's very different from Vows, which is like a grounded sort of like kooky comedy.
Yeah.
Um, but there are funny parts in it. It's funny.
Really?
Jim, yeah, that's what my Jim, he's also like a screenwriter and a TV writer. I think he wrote for Roseanne when he was younger. Um, yeah, he's like no bullshit. And he said he read the draft and he was like, I have to ask Isabelle, are you okay?
Dude, that's like the biggest compliment you can get as a writer, where someone's like, I have a therapist on the phone.
Yeah. He's like, is is everything okay? I was like, yeah, everything's fine.
Yeah. Who
And
hurt
what do you
you?
mean?
Who
Yeah,
hurt
yeah.
you?
And I was like, the part at the restaurant. You didn't think that was funny? He was like, I guess. I was like, I thought it was hilarious. I was cracking myself up. So I'm hoping to bring more brevity and humor into it, but it is a subject, and as someone who has experienced sort of sexual violation and has so many people in my life who have. I think there's sometimes this element of like you're never going to get over it, or there's this feeling of like the road to recovery is so hard, and that can be true.
Mm,
But I also want there to be a different narrative out there, of what recovery
absolutely.
can look like. And I also I want to tell this kick-ass story, and I want to write kick-ass parts for Black women in particular, parts that show different parts of us,
Amazing.
our vulnerabilities, our sensitivities. And then the other thing I'm working on, I've started researching for, is a pilot called Specialized, and that's like a teen fantasy drama. And
Mm.
it involves, I can't say too much about it yet, but it
Okay.
involves sort of African gods and goddesses, and it involves voodoo. Um, so
Love it
yeah.
already. I understand you can't say anymore. But let's talk about that at a later date.
Yeah. Yeah.
This has been incredible. I don't want to just like skip past the feature you talked about. I think
Sure.
it's a powerful story. I think you're writing an incredible thing, and I feel like for a lot of sexual assault survivors,
Mhm.
one of the most important things we can talk about is it's not getting over it; it's learning to live with it.
Mhm.
And it doesn't. It's not your identity, but it will always be a part of you. And
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
think your movie sounds like it has a beautiful message, and I look forward to seeing you make it.
Thank you.
Where?
I look
Yes.
forward to emailing you the crowdfunding,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know.
yeah. I can't wait for you to ask me for money, and I will give it because that's what we do. We support
Hmm.
artists supporting artists.
Hmm.
Where can our listeners find you? Where can they see you? You're on Zooms. You're in the movies.
And the
Where can we
movies.
find you?
You can find me on television playing a bunch of sad, serious people, as mentioned. For that, I would go to your local IMDb. Um, so many police officers, so many cops. I'm also the handles, my artist page on Facebook, the Isabelle Pierre, on Instagram at the Isabelle Pierre, occasionally on TikTok. TikTok is so much work. Gen Z is really out here working for these likes.
Uh huh.
They're working for these likes.
Uh huh.
Um, but I love vegging out on TikTok and I love being on there. And I love feeling like the old lady now. While the young kids do their dances.
Yep. Yep.
Um, Actually, my favorite genre on TikTok is like old person, like kicking ass dancing.
Oh yeah.
It's my favorite genre. Yeah, you can find me on all those places. You can find me on my website, isabellepierre.com. I do some crowdfunding consulting occasionally. I'll open up my calendar. I'm always curious about getting to know how to help folks, what people are making. And I love supporting projects. I love supporting creators. Yeah, let's make stuff.
Let's make stuff.
Hmm.
Uh, I feel like you touched on this while we were talking, but I want to ask you very specifically.
Hmm.
Being an artist is a crazy choice. This is such a
Hmm.
crazy decision to make in life.
Hmm.
Is there a philosophy or a mantra you have that you sort of use to keep yourself going?
Hmm. Um, Everything is always working out for me.
Mm,
Um, Everything in time. Um, I have had
that's some law of
moments.
attraction shit right there.
It
Everything is working
is.
out for me.
Yeah, and sometimes, there are problems with those communities, but there's a lot of beauty in this idea of like wanting something, surrendering, and understanding that the feeling is what you really want,
Mm-hmm.
and getting to the feeling so that you can get to the thing. And I have never achieved anything and basked in the achievement, feeling tension, sadness, depression, worry, anger, jealousy, ever. I could maybe force my way up that mountain, but it feels like a force. It does not
Mm-hmm.
feel good. Um, and anytime I have, put in the work and then released, it's been such like a much better experience. And I know everything in the world works against that, and people have to learn things on their own. But it's a magical experience to go back to this sense of play that I had as a child whenever I can remember to get there. And I don't have kids, but I know my friends in my community who are parents, and they can sometimes sort of embody that sense of play with their kids. Is always the thing that's like, are you playing? Are you playing? Also releasing the perfectionism. Done is better than perfect. Done is better than perfect. And reminding myself that like I can learn it. If I don't know it now, I can learn it. I've learned lots of things. I taught myself how to crowdfund,
Mm-hmm.
and now I'm teaching others.
And you taught me.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah,
the phrase
it
I'm going
can
to
be learned.
take. Done is better than perfect. I think that's
Mhm,
huge. If there's one thing I
mhm,
want our listeners and our viewers to take with them from meeting you, done is better than perfect. And
mhm,
that you have to have fun. Have fun doing what you're doing. Because if you're not having
mhm.
fun, you're doing something wrong.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Mm.
Thank you so much. There's only one other thing we got to know. We ask
Mhm.
everybody. Isabelle, how do
Yes.
you say I love you?
Um, with my attention and with my specificity in offering.
Okay, clarify that just so I
So
understand.
I'll remember. I don't have the greatest memory, but occasionally something will stick out to me. So I'll remember maybe months ago that you said that you really liked a flower, and maybe the
Mm,
flower is hard to find. So I'll just get it to you. And I think that's also why I don't always remember birthdays and anniversaries, because I feel like we should just be treating the people in our lives that we love like that as often as possible, or like as randomly as possible. So to me, like, your birthday is awesome and it's cool and it's fun. But I'm like, I've loved you my whole life. So
mm.
I don't have to wait till your birthday to do stuff like that for you, you know?
That is beautiful, and it's so
Mm.
sweet. And look, it's just a Thursday. I love you. Who like? Come on, like just buy each other
Mhm,
gifts. And I love what you're
mhm,
saying. Is it's the specificity of it,
mhm,
remembering. Oh right, they like this chocolate specifically. I'm gonna
mhm,
get that for them.
mhm,
Isabelle, Pierre, thank you so much for being on the show. This is a blast. Everybody, check out her Zoom comedy shows. If
mhm.
you're in Atlanta, go see her live. We're all going to be on the edge of our seats for your book, for your movies, the next big thing. Thank you so much. And as always, everybody, we'll see you